If you're wanting to work on your hip mobility, this 90-90 position can be a really helpful spot to be able to do that. So your setup is that your knees are both bent to 90 degrees, and there's about a 90-degree difference between your two thighs. The front hip is being stretched into external rotation, and the back hip is being stretched into internal rotation. And if you were to just hang out in these positions here, you will get a stretch, a passive stretch of those tissues of external rotation on the front hip and internal rotation on the back hip. But mobility is your ability to be able to use the range of motion, not just be able to stretch into that range of motion. So this position here, if we're going to work on the front hip, you're going to try to square yourself up so that your pelvis or your drawstring of your shorts starts to face forwards here. Ideally trying to get that over top of the front thigh. Then the next thing that you're going to do is start to work on lifting up or pushing down. So I'm going to do an angular rotation here where my knee stays down on the ground, but I'm starting to turn on the muscles in here to be able to lift my foot just a little bit off of the ground. And then the opposite where I'm now pushing down in towards the ground. And what this is doing is starting to use these hip muscles in their end range of motion. And it's starting to be able to then tell my nervous system and brain that I have control of this range of motion and I want to be able to continue to use this range of motion. And it will often give you longer lasting flexibility and mobility than stretching alone. So then you can go through that again where you're lifting up and pushing down. And ideally what happens is that you are moving the hip, but the rest of your body is not moving. So it shouldn't look like this type of thing as the rest of your body is compensating. It is purely the hip that you're trying to move. Now the next is to then try to be able to rotate your pelvis as much as you can to line up with this back thigh. Then you can do the same concept where you're trying to lift your foot up off of the ground. My knees staying down and I'm lifting up my shin and my foot off of the ground. And then the opposite of pushing that back down. Now, because you're at the end of your range of motion, this is generally not a very big motion, and that's totally okay. In fact, if you don't lift off at all, that's not a bad thing. It's just engaging those muscles at the very end of their range of motion. And that will be giving that signal back towards your nervous system to say, hey, I want to be able to use this range of motion and I can control it. And it will generally give you an opening up of the hips, an external rotation for the front leg, an internal rotation of the back leg. And then if needed, you would repeat to do the exact same thing on the opposite side, lifting up and pushing down, and then squaring up to the back hip, lifting up and pushing down. So that's a great way to be able to improve hip mobility in the 90-90 position.